2024 to order. Roll call, please.
Anna here.
Kipchinsky here.
Lorik here. Kavich here.
Guzikowski here.
Oldani here.
Seifert here.
Item 3 is approval of minutes from May the 28th, 2024. I'll give everybody a minute or two to take a look at that. If there's any questions, errors, omissions, or discussion, please take the floor. You're satisfied everything's in order? Motion?
Seifert moves to approve the minutes of May 28, 2024.
Guzikowski will second.
Roll call, beginning with Christine.
Anna, I.
Kipchinsky, aye.
Lorik, aye. Kavich, aye.
Guzikowski aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Okay, item 4 is discuss the report on the recent Common Council actions. Melanie?
Common Council recently approved resolution number 12501-060424, approving a certified survey map from Brad Schmidt affecting the property at 9600 South Howell Avenue. Common Council also approved resolution number 12502-060424, approving a certified survey map submitted by William Nelson, the seller, for the properties at 800 and 812 West Oakwood Road.
Thank you. Item 4 is review and discuss recent Board of Housing and Zoning Appeals actions. Melanie?
The Board of Housing and Zoning Appeals recently denied the variance for case number 24-0005, a request by Ralph Kelm, TDI Associates Architects, for the following: a variance from the Oak Creek Municipal Code 17.0301, Table 17.0301A, which states no multifamily structure shall be located closer than 50 feet to a single family district line. This property is located in the RM1 zoning district. The appellant requested relief from the code section above due to the shape of the lot and the size of the proposed expansion. Based on the findings, the board denied the variance request.
Thank you, Melanie.
Oh, there's one more, sorry.
Oh, there is one
I
more.
just took
Thank
a
you.
longer pause. The board granted the variance for case number 24-006, a request by Kurt Gunderson and Deborah Lurkey, 8371 South 20th Street, for the following: a variance from Oak Creek Municipal Code 17.0414 subsection A3, which states on residential lots greater than 0.5 acre, the aggregate maximum area of all accessory buildings shall not exceed 1,200 square feet or 75% of the livable area of the principal building, whichever is less. The appellant requested relief from the above code section in order to replace and expand the existing garage to a 1,064 square feet and retain the existing 480 square foot shed. Based on the findings, the board granted the variance.
Thank you, Melanie. Is there any discussions, questions regarding the actions of Board of Zoning and Appeals? Okay, seeing none. Item 6 is a review and discussion report on the recent quarterly Parks and Recreation Commission actions. We'll get that report July the 23rd, 2024. Item 7A under new business, it's consideration of a temporary use permit submitted by Pastor Irvin Henderson, World Outreach Center, for temporary vehicle storage on the property at 6912 South 27th Street. Melanie?
Sorry to interrupt, but I was hoping to make an introduction for the fire department before we do new business.
Certainly.
So last fall, we promoted a new position, administrative lieutenant in charge of fire prevention. So tonight, Lieutenant Amy Jibb is here with me. Just wanted to introduce you to her so that you may see her more oftentimes in the future as a fire department representative. So I thought it was fair to at least introduce you to Lieutenant Jibb. If you have any questions for me or her at the conclusion of the meeting, we'll be here at the end.
Great. Would you like to introduce yourself? Come on up, Amy. Oh, gotta be on the mic. Everything's on the mic. We're so official here.
It's nice to be here. I'm happy to be in this spot and
partake in all this stuff. So I'm Amy, and I look forward to meeting you guys and doing more business.
Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Mike. Over to Melanie for the vehicle storage.
Plan commissioners shall recall that this item was held at the May 14th meeting due to stormwater pond maintenance issues. After that meeting, the property worked with the city's engineering department to take care of this issue. The engineering department has visited the site and confirmed that the site does look good. In review, Rosen Auto will be parking 300 vehicles on this site in the lots east and west of the existing building shown on screen in the yellow for 9 months while Rosen is under construction. There will be no signage or sales taking place on this site. With that, suggested motion is on screen.
Okay. Would the applicant like to say anything before we go to the commission, or you want to wait on questions? Okay, sir, he's indicated he will wait if there are any questions from the commission. Let's start with Christine.
I have no question, thank you.
Ashley?
I have no questions. Engineering was out to the site a few different times. Within less than a week of our original meeting, the applicant had responded very quickly, mowed down what was asked of them. We did check back again, and things are sufficient from an engineering standpoint. So we do appreciate your prompt response to that.
Greg, your district.
Excuse me. I have no concerns. I appreciate the quick response on getting stuff done to get this taken care of. Thank you.
Okay. Chris?
I have no questions.
Don?
I have no questions.
Okay, Fred?
I have no questions at this time.
Okay. Anything from fire concerning vehicle storage? Hang on, sir.
Again, Mike Havey, Assistant Chief of Fire. So we really don't have any concerns as long as the provisions are provided that fire department access is maintained through the entirety of the permit.
Okay, has that been communicated to the applicants?
It is communicated, I think, through the use permit that fire department access shall be maintained.
Okay, just so they don't park up the building.
Correct. They have to meet the clearance for all of our access. So typically, we look at 20 to 25 feet for the building, or any of the suppression devices or pieces that need to get to the equipment, such as FDCs or egress and access doors.
Okay. Sir, you wanted to say something? You'll have to come to the microphone, and we'll need your name and address.
My name is Al Alma. I own the property adjacent to the issue.
Just give us the address.
6964 South 27th.
Okay.
Last time we talked about a retention pond. Can I talk about that just briefly?
Sure.
Okay. I'd like for you to look at a letter that was written 23 years ago.
Thank you.
So as you can tell by the letter dated almost 20-some years ago, this has been going on for a long time with the retention pond. Right now, if they cut it down, which I assume that they did, all the weeds, the outlet of that retention pond is at the same level as the bottom, or a little lower. So instead of a retention pond, right now it's just like a river. The water comes in, the water flows out. Henry suggested that it should be converted to not a pond that would be a wet pond instead of just a dry pond, because the weeds, if they've been cut, 3 months from now, they're going to be just as high or 5 or 6 feet tall and it's not gonna do any good. What happened is the size of that retention pond come down, so the bottom has come up. So instead of that outlet being 2 feet, Henry suggested 4 feet, but 2 feet, now it's right here. So the water comes in, the water flows out. The tenant told me that the parking lot overflows, and I was concerned about the water that retains itself at the higher level. Why is water at the higher level when it should be only at the bottom? Because the curb overflows. There's so much water coming down on that parking lot that the curb doesn't retain the water. It just overflows onto my property.
Okay, so this really isn't an agenda item on it. They address it. I wasn't here the last time they addressed this, but the pond, Ashley, you just want to comment, it has been taken care of?
Yes, the required maintenance has been taken care of. As far as what's in here, it's something that, I mean, it's a letter that I'm not aware of. It was over 20 years ago. That doesn't mean we would disregard it or anything. We can look into it. We can evaluate it. The pond design in the plan sheet that you had provided is very dated. I mean, pre-times of when we had maintenance agreements or anything like that. From our cursory look of what we were able to see, it appeared to have been, functioning and designed as what we could tell from this very basic plan, but we can definitely look into these comments from the previous city engineer and reevaluate and take a look at it.
Due respect to what you say, last year I called in August about the problem that my farmer was having. The department didn't respond until October to send a letter out. The letter goes out and nothing's done about it. It just sits there. I know you have big projects going on, that this is just a little thing, but it is important not to have that water continually flowing onto my property.
Well, again, I can't speak to that. If you did register it with our engineering department, and our engineers are usually very good about following up on this. So I don't have an answer other than to confirm what Ashley said and continue to check onto this as to what was found when they got this letter and they sent the letter out to you. I don't know what it stated, but we can look into it. It's not the agenda item, but I know this came up last time about the detention ponds. So other than that, we haven't had, other than you coming here tonight or the last time you came, we haven't had any complaints on this problem. What we don't know, we don't know.
I hope you look into it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Any more questions or discussions?
Oh, just a comment. So when the last time this item was up, the applicant was asked to take care of what the city was asking them to do. That sounds like that has been done. I think it was the maintenance that they're responsible for. I'm satisfied with engineering's, seal of approval on that. If someone, and I'm sorry, sir, I forgot your name, but if, someone can direct him how to follow up on his concerns, which might be, the way I understand it's separate from the responsibility of the owners over there. It's just, somebody might need to give you a little direction on what's next. That's all.
I guess just to not completely drag this out, but he's correct. A letter was sent out in October, and we were going through a lot of staffing changes, staffing shortages, retirements. Since that time, we're fully staffed. I know DPW was out there twice. Engineering staff has been out there at least twice. So we will continue to look into and address your concerns.
But again, thank you for bringing it to our attention. Over the years, I can understand exactly what you said may have happened. So I have trust in our staff. They'll get to it. So, with that, is there any more discussion on item 7A?
One last thing from planning.
Yes.
So after Havy talked about the fire stuff, we did add a little bit extra onto our number 9 condition, just to adhere to all the applicable fire codes, just to be a little more clear on it.
Thanks for pointing it out.
Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
All right. Tim McMurtry, 6912 South 27th Street. Here on behalf of World Outreach Center, I wanted to just thank the commission for giving us an opportunity to rectify the situation, things that were brought to our attention as far as the maintenance of the high growth of the vegetation from the May 14th hearing. we've been able to get that squared away. And as far as folks saying, well, hey, will they keep up the maintenance, et cetera, our attention was grabbed on the 14th with the holdup. So appreciate the commissioner for not, moving to hold up or deny. I just wanted to have just an opportunity for us to rectify that. Relative to the letter that was sent in October, we had an administrative glitch as well, coupled with some of the transition that was going on with the city of Oak Creek, and that kind of got past us. We believe that we have rectified that. We look forward to a long-term relationship with the city of Oak Creek. It was also alleged that we were bad neighbors. That's not a moniker we want associated with us as a ministry. And so we've had an excellent working relationship. We were instructed to work with Commissioner Kopczynski. Sorry if I butchered your name. I apologize. McMurtry, I get it all the time. And she has been delightful to work with, as well as staff, Melanie and Carrie. And so what we are wanting to do is being able to adhere to the direction of the city and continue to put our best foot forward, which we think we've demonstrated. It was an opportunity for us to extend an olive branch and show and prove that we were trustworthy community citizens, and we think that we've been able to do that, and we respectfully request approval from you all tonight.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. Appreciate all the efforts you put forward and promises for the future. So if there's nothing else on 7A, motion, please.
Clerk moves to approve the temporary use permit request submitted by Pastor Irvin Henderson, World Outreach Center, for the long-term temporary vehicle storage for Rosen Auto in the parking lot on the property at 6912 South 27th Street with the following conditions. 1, there shall be a maximum of 300 vehicles stored on the property in striped parking stalls within the approved vehicle storage area. No vehicles shall be parked on grass or gravel. 2, delivery or removal of vehicles shall be between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. 3, no additional cars shall be added to the site. 4, there shall be no sales of vehicles from the approved vehicle storage area. 5, there shall be no structures for this temporary use. 6, any security fencing shall conform to all code and permitting requirements. 7, there shall be no lighting added to this temporary use. 8, there shall be no advertising or signage in the approved vehicle storage area. 9, the vehicle storage area shall not encroach upon fire lanes and shall adhere to all applicable fire codes. 10, there shall be no outdoor storage of equipment, junk, damaged, non-inventory vehicles, parts, supplies, or flammable hazardous materials. 11, a copy of the lease or agreement between World Outreach Center and Rosen Auto shall be supplied to the Department of Community Development prior to parking any vehicle within the approved vehicle storage area. And 12, the temporary use permit for storage of vehicles shall expire 9 months from the Plan Commission's approval date, March 11th, 2025. Vehicles shall be removed and the property shall be restored to its original condition within 14 calendar days following the expiration of the temporary use permit. No extensions of the temporary use permit will be issued.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call, beginning with Ashley.
Chinsky, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
And I.
Okay. Moving right along, item 7B, and it is to review conditions and restrictions related to a request by Amir Masad, Vista Motor Works LLC for conditional use permit for the automotive sale and indoor showroom within an existing multi-tenant building on the property at 9555 South Chicago Road. Melanie.
In review, the applicant is looking for recommended approval for indoor vehicle sales and a showroom for up to 8 cars at this property. Hours of operation are Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. by appointment. There will be no outdoor storage or sales. Signs will have to be per code. Parking lot will have to be landscape per code as discussed at the previous meeting, as well as trash enclosure per code. Any changes to the parking lot would need Plan Commission review. Lighting will be per code and setbacks per code. The duration of this conditional use permit is 1 year. provided to the commissioners at their seats when they sat was a landscape and trash enclosure plan. We are working with the applicant to fix these plans, make sure they're to compliance, and working with them to get that there. Staff has no, can't think of the word, has no concern for removing the required landscape around the trash enclosure due to the location and existing of the trash enclosure on the site. With that, the suggested motion is on screen.
Great, thank you, Melanie. Before we go to commission, applicant want to say anything, or you want to wait on questions? Okay, he's indicated he'll wait on questions. Let's start off to my right this time. If you're viewing me, your left. Fred?
The only question I have is the disposable enclosure of your garbage. Are you still going to contain that portable dumpster that you have back there, or are you going to get rid of that?
Sir, we'll need you up at the podium. And as usual, name and address, please.
Amir Masood, 9555 South Chicago Road. Well, the dumpster that we took over was the 2 cubic feet, I believe, the size, and it came with wheels on. So I don't think, and it's a small size, so we weren't really thinking about getting any bigger ones or anything. So that's the one that was provided from Eagle Disposal.
Still have to enclose that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, Don?
The only question I have you had any more communication with the owners stepping up to take care of some stuff? I know you said, hey, you want to make it work because you really want your business there. Has there been anything with the owners, any communication, any intent to do their part?
There has been communication with the owner. The owner generally is kind of letting me be liable due to me having a conditional use permit. He does not feel a bit being liable for some of the things. So to put it kind of in a way, my business going there is the one with the conditional use. So in a way, it's kind of like, you deal with it.
So I'm gonna look at. So is that even a thing? Can the owner transfer liability to the tenant? What his responsibility is? I think he has something to say about that.
We'll get it from the fire perspective.
Yeah.
Mike Habe again, Assistant Chief with Fire. So in with the fire code, it does illustrate that the building owner and the tenants, if they have a mutually agreed upon transaction. However, the building owner is responsible for all of fire prevention codes. So they ultimately are responsible for anything related to fire prevention, that they maintain the standards for what the code provisions are. Now, that I only speaking on fire prevention. Those other issues maybe outside of that purview. That's our answer.
Yeah.
So there's a similar answer from planning. Ultimately, the responsibility for the upkeep and the conformance with code requirements lies with the landowner. So it's admirable that the tenant is here stating that they will take on that responsibility, but it is a code requirement, and the code requirement lies with the landowner. So if this gentleman decides not to lease this space and walk away, the requirements for code compliance still remain, and that goes with the land.
That's what I figured. You should watch out for yourself. That's all I'm saying. I think somebody stated they always hate to see when the owner shifts responsibility onto the tenant.
If I may add, so because I am in a bit of talks within the next few years of probably purchasing the building from the owner.
Okay.
So that's why I'm kind of taking responsibility into building the right image for the building for me to take on and hopefully expand my building, my business within it. Now, in regards to some of the things to be done, I have actually drawn up a plan and sent it over to planning. I sent in a few different options.
Okay.
And there is a few things that I would actually like to discuss if I may have a chance to, whenever we're done with the questions. So I'm not sure if you guys were provided a copy. I do have a few copies I can give out.
We do have this.
Okay, good.
Oh, yeah, that was the one sitting up here. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I appreciate that, and you.
I took your word on
thank
that.
you,
You wanted to
right,
see something, so I made
yeah.
sure to, it took me a week to put something
Which makes it even
together.
more admirable that you're taking on this responsibility, and if that's true, you're gonna own, the building one day, I'd say we're probably gonna end up with a, better owner than we have now.
So this is kind of like for me to say in a way that I want to bring in my business and I want to stay in Oak Creek because I like it, I like the area. In a way, I know the building needs some improvements, but I do like it. It is better than where I was. So I'm starting my own business.
All right, I appreciate the effort, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Chris?
No more questions.
Greg?
No concerns.
Ashley?
No questions.
Christine?
No questions.
Anything out of fire?
Mike Havey, Assistant Chief Fire, seems to be a busy night. I think we already reiterated on the previous meeting, just for code applications, that vehicles stored inside for sales need to be drained of all their fuel and the batteries have to be disconnected.
Thank you. From my perspective, Don pretty much said it all. This is really a case of an absentee landlord is what it is. The tenant makes improvements to improve his own conditions and the whole thing. So it's very admirable what you're doing. I hope it all works out for you.
Thank you.
It's sad, but this planning process is where sometimes we can actually get properties in compliance that have long been outside compliance for various reasons. So,
Thank you.
Anything else? Seeing nothing, motion.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I did want to say something. I did look into some of the suggestion notions that was submitted, and I feel like 1 year of duration is too little for my occupancy. Prior, it was a 5-year occupancy, and for me to put in the work and invest the money, I feel like having 1 year is not fair.
Oh, I'm glad you brought it up before we made a motion. I'll ask planning to address that one.
The reason that we reduced it from a previously issued 5-year to a 1-year has to do with the previous conditions that were not adhered to. And those were the concerns that were brought forward previously and discussed at the last meeting. This is an opportunity for us to maintain basically communication and to keep an eye on the property to ensure that we don't get into a situation that we had prior. It's addressing those concerns. That doesn't mean that the conditional use will necessarily suddenly go away. What it means is within a year, we ask the applicant, you need to come back and renew that conditional use and go through that process again. However, it is a 1-year recommendation by staff. If the Plan Commission wishes to change that and recommend a different time frame to the Common Council, you absolutely have that authority.
Understood.
If I could add,
Yes.
because I do understand my business is subject to the conditions, but it's just for being just me limited on something that the prior tenant and a landowner was neglecting for me to fix, and for me to be limited with a time frame of how long my occupancy is set, I feel like it's not really fair. Because I'm going to be investing a lot of money into fixing things, and having just me set, if that makes sense.
I totally get it. Go ahead.
I have a
Don.
question for Carrie. If we wanted to make that change, would we make it here in this motion?
I would ask that the Plan Commission basically come to a consensus on what you wish for us to put in the conditions and restrictions and make that part of the motion, meaning have the discussion, direct staff, we'll put it in here and consider that as part. You don't need to change the motion for that specific condition.
Understood. So I feel that this is definitely a no good deed goes unpunished situation. I'd be willing to be fair to both staff and their concerns, at least another year onto this. We all know how fast a year goes by. And it looks and sounds like, the intention is true in this case. So I'd say a year, and if somebody has another take, I'm all ears. Or
Just-
total of 2 years.
Just very quickly, in the conditions and restrictions in 10, violations and penalties. You know, the conditional uses, the issuance is there. If they occur 2 or more violations within a 12-month period, we have the right to revoke that conditional use.
Revocation of a conditional use permit is never anything that staff wishes to present. It's kind of a last ditch effort to bring the property into compliance, but it doesn't get rid of the issue per se. It just revokes that conditional use permit. There's still going to be additional follow-up after that. That's not to say that it can't happen. That's not to say that it may not happen. I have not, in the 11 years that I've been with the city, gone through a revocation process. I don't know if that's something to be proud of or if that's something that, it just is what it is. So I think that's just something to keep in mind.
I was going to ask you your opinion. Obviously, you think time limits probably a little more.
Time limits being that it allows everybody the opportunity to review the process again, well, not the process, review the application again to make sure that everything is in compliance. It allows us also to say, these things aren't necessarily working. We need to either amend these conditions or we need to, add something, or we can say, you know what, this was a concern before, it's no longer a concern. We can revise this wording so that it's not quite so stringent. In any case, whatever duration you put on here, the conditional use permit does have to be renewed.
Okay. So, sorry about that, Don. I kind of redirected. So Don suggested a 2-year, kind of splitting the difference somewhat. It ain't exactly a 50-50, but it gives you some breathing room for 2. And you okay with 2? I know.
Guess.
Kind of a barter.
Well,
Greg?
I guess I just have a clarifying question. The conditional use is attached to the property, correct? Not the tenant.
The conditional use is attached to the property except for
if I go,
if
yeah,
he terminates the lease.
terminated.
That's the way that the language was structured in the previous conditional use permit for this property as well.
Okay.
So if that lease goes, this conditional use permit is null and void.
They couldn't part ways and the owner of the property couldn't continue to use this.
That's
condition.
correct.
So I guess I'd be less concerned with extending it even another year. He's made a good faith to make improvements to the property himself as the tenant, and knowing that if he leaves, the owner of the property, who seems to have been the issue here, cannot fall under this conditional use. If they part ways, if he's still the tenant, I feel that he's made good faith and he'll continue to improve the property under this conditional use. So, I mean, I have no problem even another year. But
I agree.
2 to 3 years, I'm fine with.
Yeah.
How about 3? You bought yourself another year.
Sounds better.
And go up to 5 years.
That's even better.
And I will say, if you do purchase the property, I would have no problem as long as you maintain the relationship you had at the point of renewal, extending it to 5 years at that point. 'Cause then it'll be your property and the owner will be out of it.
Well, I'm sure we are going to meet again later on, because if business does better, most likely we will want to expand to outdoor storage. So to have more space to park outside to display, 8 vehicles. If business does well, that means we will come meet again and talk about possibly having probably let's say another 5 spots outside, for example, And this is something in the future. I don't see it happening right now. It's going to take, as any business, it's going to take time for it to build up. And whenever we need to store more inventory, first thing I'll do is come contact city, because like I said on the last meeting, I always like to be on good terms with the city, with anything, in general. It's kind of like giving, customer service for customers. I want to make sure that everything is done right. And even whenever we're done with this, if there's a few things I'd like to discuss about the plan that I submitted, see some thoughts about it.
Okay. So we're still in the motion phase.
Have we directed it 3? Is that the official
Sounded like
direction?
3. Sounds like
I do have
3.
a few questions here. So what items, so you were kind of looking at this, I don't know, is it to kind of buy yourself some extra time to come into compliance on some of these, or I guess just kind of curious, 'cause some of the stuff in here, like the trash enclosure, that's 6 months, right? I mean, I guess, what other items here, and is there going to be an extension then to some of these other items to come into compliance?
Just the landscape. Dumpster,
That's it,
I think
right?
they both got time limits.
Landscaping and trash enclosure are within 6 months of the issuance of the conditional use permit. As far as the previous concerns were, with regard to the previous tenant and those violations, as far as we are aware as of tonight, those violations are gone. So, but for the conformance with the trash enclosure and landscaping requirements. So, there's no other outstanding requirement other than to, comply with these conditions and restrictions. So general code compliance moving forward.
Okay. I think it said 3.
Agree with that.
Any further discussion?
No.
Seeing none?
Lork moves to recommend that the Common Council adopt amendments to the conditions and restrictions as part of the plan unit development. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong one. Lork moves to recommend that the Common Council adopt the conditions and restrictions as part of the conditional use permit for vehicle sales on the property at 9543 South Chicago Road. Tenant space 9555 South Chicago Road.
Do we have to make note on 3 here?
Hold on 2 seconds.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, roll call, beginning with Greg.
Lork, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Hold on, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Anna, I.
Jinsky, aye.
Great, thank you, sir.
You wanted to discuss
Discuss that with
Yeah, he'll take it up with staff, because we're not on the agenda. Okay, we are down to item 7C, and that is Plan Unit Development Amendment for Conditions and Restrictions. Requested by Ryan Jansen, Jansen Bruckner LLC, to amend the existing PUD on the portions of the property at 641 and 819R East Drexel Avenue. Carrie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This may look familiar. Plan Commission did actually recommend approval to the Common Council for the PUD amendments that were previously discussed. However, the Common Council decided to remand the conditions and restrictions back to the Plan Commission as there was an additional request made for modifications to the code requirements, specifically with regard to the maximum facade percentage that the garages can comprise. So just to give you a refresher, PUD was originally approved a number of years ago. They're not proposing any changes to the layout or the number of units or anything like that. We had already previously discussed the amendments to the models themselves with regards to materials that were going to be used. The request was down to an 1.5 inch thickness for the masonry that is proposed on the models themselves. With that, there was a requirement, and we'll discuss the exact wording of that in just a moment, for additional landscaping. And then we have the modification request for the garage. It was a little bit of a misunderstanding, and we had a conversation with the applicant and their representatives regarding what the requirements are. So we don't actually have updated models from that request. The models are assumed to show this 55% for a maximum of 20 buildings. That's the request. The remaining buildings would all meet the code requirement as is, so no more than 45% of the facade. Except for those that are considered side entry garages, excuse me, in which case they have to follow the code requirements for a side entry garage. So the facade width and the maximum percentage doesn't actually come into play for that particular model. Have I confused everybody? Okay, awesome. That's what I was going for. Okay. Code has a requirement that an attached garage, if set a maximum of 5 feet ahead of the front facade of the house. So you've got your front door here, your garage can go no more than 5 feet in front of it, okay? The other requirement, though, is if you do have a garage that extends forward from the front facade of your house, it can be no more than 45% of the total facade width. So whatever your house is plus your garage, that total can, you can only, no more than 45% of that total can be garage. With me? Awesome. Okay, this request is saying 20 of those buildings, we'd like that garage to be 55% of the facade as opposed to 45%. That's what the modification request is. The rest of the buildings, they'll follow code requirements. Because that's what the models are. That's what the request is for the modification for 20 buildings. I will defer to the applicant to answer that question. However, the rest of the conditions and restrictions have not really changed, but for incorporating some of those comments at the previous meeting. So in the conditions and restrictions, we have homes constructed within the PUD shall be in conformance with the approved designs in the exhibit and the conditions and restrictions. We've got that. We have the changes to ensure that we have the correct roadways identified. On page 2 of 25, we have under section 2J, yes, 2J, the highlighted section is what we are changing. This is the language that we are proposing. Landscaping in accordance with the master landscape plan approved by the Plan Commission on January 10th, 2023, and incorporating additional landscaping at a minimum of 1 tree per building to compensate for the reduction in masonry thickness in sections 3C1 below, shall be installed for each building and associated buffer areas prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit for the requested building. Split rail fences shall be installed along the 5-foot undisturbed buffer around all remaining wetlands to compensate for the additional facade width of the attached garages, the maximum of 55%. We do have that requirement for any modification request. There has to be an area above and beyond minimum code requirements elsewhere in the PUD to compensate for that modification request. All landscaping around common areas, including but not limited to landscaping around the stormwater pond and installation of the split rail fences around all remaining wetlands, shall be installed prior to the issuance of the final occupancy permit for the development. Requests for occupancy permits between November 1st and April 30th shall provide a landscape escrow in conformance with local policy requirements. Then under section 3A, we are adding a maximum of 20 buildings may have garages that reach the maximum of 55% of the facade's total width. We also have under 3B7, 1, 2, the subsections. If the garage is set ahead from the front facade of the home as detailed above, it shall not exceed 55% of the facade's total width. That's for the 20 buildings maximum. And then garages in line also shall not exceed 55%. Everything else is exactly as the Plan Commission had reviewed prior. So with that in mind, we do have a suggested motion for approval on the screen. I will defer any questions regarding the justification or rationale for the 55% on 20 of the buildings to the applicant. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. We'll start off with some questions. Christine, go right ahead.
Okay, so Carrie, I have a question for you first before I go to the applicant. So, the applicant has a request to defer from the standard of 45% to go to 55%. So, what are the standards? So, what are the acceptable? I guess even I know it's the provision of the Plan Commission to accept it or not. Because what I'm trying to say is, if we accept it for once, we don't want to come back for everybody to come back and say, well, we want an exception because you provided that exception to that. So we're going to be keep providing exceptions to everyone then.
Every applicant, every application, every development is to be reviewed on its own individually as it conforms to code. If there's a modification request that comes forward for a separate development, they will have to give justification, therefore, for any modification to the code. Recommending or approving a modification in one event does not hold the Plan Commission to then grant it in another.
That's exactly what I want to hear. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, the applicant,
Name and address, sir.
Ryan Jansen, S98W33270 Genevieve Drive, McGuanago.
well, my question is, why the variance for those, I believe, 10 homes, 20 homes from 45 to 55%?
Really, it comes down to density and the width of the building, right? So in order to get to the 45%, we'd have to take my 80-foot building and make it 100 feet wide. Extrapolate that over the entire development, we go from the 33 buildings that we have in the development down to, I think, 26. We lose 6 or 7 buildings, which makes the project not really feasible if you have to build the same amount of roads, same amount of utilities and everything else, and you're serving 7 less buildings. So I guess one could argue it's not good for the developer. It's probably not necessarily good maybe for the city either. That's 14 units of tax revenue and things like that could fit and look really, really good, just the same as, to the layperson, they would drive by, they would have no idea. So another part of the code, there is a 45% allowed that's if the garage is set back. So I did bring a picture, and I don't know if Carrie can put this up there, I can pass it around, of a building that is garage set back. Can you bring up my rendering? Oh, it's in the packet. Oh, yeah.
Last page.
So this picture is a garage set 1 foot back from the living space, right? So this technically would be allowed. But this is the exact same amount of garage that I have, except my garages are on the outside. And if you took this and you compared it to the model that, I think there's 13 of them, that is 55%, it would really be a matter of preference which one you think looks better. Personally, we don't have the models up, but personally I think having the garages in the middle like this looks a little bit too garagey, right? Having them separated to me looks, which my buildings are, looks a little bit better, in my opinion. But it really the main thing that it comes down to is the density. We're developing at, I think, 56% of the allowed density right now. If you had to go to a 100-foot building and you lose the 6 or 7, I think we'd be in the 40s for density. So we're already, pretty low as what was allowed for the property.
Okay, so from the outside, is it going to be visible? Is it going to be noticeable, the size at all? Or is it just like in depth?
Models are included in your packets. If you turn to the Exhibit C, those give you renderings, example renderings for the proposed homes.
So the one that is the majority of the 20 is the first one. So the first picture, and then the balance would be the 4th picture. So if you look at the first picture compared to, this one, personally, I don't think one looks any better than the other. And you would have no idea that it's just, to me, this one in the picture being allowed looks almost exactly the same as the one I'm doing. It looks just as good as the one I'm doing, but this one's allowed and this one isn't. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. I just want to make sure that it's not noticeable, so when you drive around, everything looks consistent.
You don't just see all garage.
Yes, so there is no.
Right.
Okay.
I understand I understand what you guys did with the code. I completely understand it. But when it comes to some of these projects, it makes it a little hard to. It eliminates a lot of options for design.
I understand where you're coming from, so that makes it clear. Thank you.
Okay. Ashley?
I don't see any issues with including that 55% for the 20 buildings.
Greg?
I guess I'll just reiterate my previous comments kind of on this. My only concern, dilemma on this is a lot of work was done into the rewriting of this code. They looked at other communities, a lot of background kind of went into why these numbers were decided. Whether it's aesthetic reasons or current home models or whatever the case may be, these numbers were decided on. And I feel that doing things like this kind of gets us in a habit of, well, not overlooking, but allowing variances to the code to allow for new development. Whereas existing residents, I don't have statistics, so I can't say whether it happens more often than not, but existing residents, we had a report this meeting, applied for a variance to put an extension on, but it was denied because it didn't fit in the lot. But then new development comes forward and we approve variances to allow them to make density, which I understand. If you can't make the density, it doesn't make sense financially to develop.
Right.
So I mean, I guess that's my holdup here. So often after, or so quickly after putting all the work into the code and finalizing these numbers, we're already looking at allowing variances to that, just to get a development in. That's all I have for now.
Okay. Chris?
I don't personally like the look, and I wouldn't support the 55%.
Don't like the look of which.
I'm sorry, I wouldn't agree with the change.
So this would be acceptable, but this one wouldn't, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Is that it, Chris? Okay. Don?
I have a couple questions. Off the top of my head, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I do think Mark brings up some good points, but this really isn't about holding up two pictures and saying this one looks good and this one doesn't. This is about the code, and whether we want to allow a variance. And even though Carrie said that it doesn't set a precedent, I feel it does a little bit. That's not to say we're not going to do it. So how, generally speaking, and you know, we hear 2-car garage, 2.5-car garage. Where would these with your variance, if we went with the 55%, where do these fall in as far as the size of the garage?
Meaning like the dimensions?
Not necessarily. Like, are these like a straight up 2-car garage, a 2.5?
They're 22 feet.
They're
about as.
They're like 2 cars and that's it. Okay, so
cars and garbage cans.
All right, so it's not necessarily like we can't make the garage any smaller. It's more the design that of the building. It's more or less the building doesn't make the 55%, but the garage does, I guess, if that's one way to looking at it. Okay, I just kind of wanted to have a little understanding on the actual size of the garage, and there's no room to move that around, it sounds like.
There are certain models in here that we're going to a 1-car garage to meet the 55%. So one of the units has a 2-car, and one of the units will have a 1-car.
Okay. All right.
You know, I know you guys did spend a lot of time on the code. It was just written 2 years ago. You know, and I brought this comment up at Common Council, is that you guys have a zoning district that allows a 70-foot wide lot. You got your 10-foot setback, so you got a 50-foot buildable area. So in order, you'd have to build to the lot lines, to that building envelope, 50 feet in order to have a 22-foot garage that sits in front of the house. It just eliminates a lot of options for a lot of builders. A lot of builders have egregious garages that come out a ridiculous amount. It's all garage, it's all you see from the front, which I think is probably what prompted some of this code to be written. But having the garage even just 5 feet backwards, be behind the building, eliminates a lot of models for a lot of builders. And you know, this may be one of the first ones that came to you guys, but I would imagine it's going to come around a bit.
That's it for me for now.
Okay. Fred?
The only concern I have is the exterior of the building material, which you went from 3 inch to 1.5 inches.
Right.
And why did, the code usually says 3 inches and you went to 1.5 inches?
The reason we asked for 1.5 inches is that I've been in the industry for 23 years now. I was a framing contractor, siding contractor, builder, the whole nine. I've kind of done it all. And all that stone behind you is 1.5 inches thick, inch and a half thick. And that's the product that we use, is something just like that. It sticks to the building from this far away. If everybody turned around, you wouldn't be able to tell how thick that stone is. It's 95% of what builders use, up to $1.5 million homes before you go to like a full stone or a full brick, right? It's cost effective, and in production building, which this is what this is, production building, you're building a lot of buildings, similar like single family, or some of the single Corndorfer, that they do production homes, stepping stones, they do a lot of them. Cost is important, and if you have to go and you're doubling your masonry price, that affects the cost of the entire product. When people are building homes, bigger homes and things like that, and they have, it's drawn with full stone on there. As soon as they get the price for how much the house costs, that's the first thing that they modify, because they can cut their stone bill down from 60 grand to 30 grand by doing thin stone, and from the road, you have no idea. There are things that we do to make it look better. A lot of guys will put like a corner board and then they'll run the stone into that. We always try to make it go around the corner, so you don't see from the end of it the thickness of it. So I guess that's the reason. I think what a lot of guys will end up doing is if they're faced with this full stone requirement, they'll probably just omit the stone altogether.
I have another question. The Exhibit A and B shows that you've taken out several lots on this layout from the original.
Commissioner Sieper, that is actually identifying where the lots are not incorporated into the PUD. It's not that they were ever intended to be part of the PUD.
I thought maybe they were X'd out or taken off the plot.
No, that was in the original as well. That was to identify the existing single family that would remain single family and not part of this PUD.
Okay, thank you. Sure. That's it for me.
Okay, before I go, anything out of fire concerning this stuff? Busy night, Mike.
Mike Avey, Assistant Chief Fire. So this doesn't really fall under the purview of fire department inspection or code, but it's a single family, so we really have no comment.
Okay. Okay, so I'm kind of up. I get it. We did put a lot of time and effort into that code, and I'm not going to say one size fits all. It's a little bit like a sign code. We did this, and no sooner did we do it, some of the houses came through that were being built, basic spec houses. They didn't meet our code right off the get-go. Spec model houses from builders. Matter of fact, Knight's Construction needed a variance. Their garage at one point. So it's not to say we got it completely right. I will say this, totally get the density part. This is a little bit of a challenging property too. With the garages separated, it gives it more of a single family home. Much like the properties over in Greg's district on Jonathan. Instead of having the garages. I know he showed the pictures and that's not what we base it on, but it's different, so to speak. Facade, and again, in this world, a single car garage is just not going to probably the average couple any good. So I'm kind of fine with it. We did concede a few things in this one, but then again, we picked up the trees, we picked up the split rail. Thank you. So it was kind of a tit for tat on that. So I'm okay moving it ahead myself. I don't have any problems that way. I think it'll be a very nice addition to the city. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have one more question. For the other building that only have one car garage that you couldn't fit more than that, is there enough space outside, like enough like asphalt area, or I think it's asphalt from what I see here from the pictures, for another car to park there, or?
Are we gonna add like an additional parking slab?
Yeah, because you don't want to see in the future people parking on the grass, or if there is any on the street or
Probably
something
not.
like that.
Well, I probably wouldn't add an additional slab, because otherwise the front yard looks like it's all concrete. They're just gonna have to get sold to the single old ladies. Need one.
You can't just say that. You cannot put this on there.
One garage.
I'm saying this because I've seen my relatives do that, and they when they had a big party, everybody parked on the grass, and it was just a nightmare. So, but anyway, it's just a comment.
Is this the last agenda item?
Yes.
Yes.
If you guys want, if you wanna have an off-the-record conversation about this code stuff, I'd be more than happy
Oh,
to stick around and
no, I think we're fine. I think we're fine.
sort of opinions or.
Or any other further discussion? Okay, seeing none. Motion 7C.
Clerk moves to recommend that the Common Council adopt amendments to the conditions and restrictions as part of the planned unit development affecting the properties at 641 and 819R East Drexel Avenue.
Seifert, second.
Roll call, beginning with myself. Aye.
Guzekowski, no.
Ladani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Anna, I.
Chinsky, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Okay,
Thanks, folks.
all set. Before we get to adjournment, the only announcements off the top of my head, we have a pop-up beer garden going on in Drexel Town Square this weekend. I believe it starts on Thursday. More importantly, Flag Day is Friday the 14th. Knoll Creek will be having a Flag Day ceremony beginning at 4 o'clock. There will be speakers. The VFW will be here to retire worn out American flags. And we will recognize Stars on the Square once again coming for the summer here right at Drexel Town Square. And we'll have some bands and things of that nature. And then, of course, you can stay and enjoy the beer garden for Friday night. If you are free on Friday, please come join us. With that, adjournment.
Clerk moves to adjourn at 7:04.
Seifert, seconds.
Roll call. Beginning with Chris.
Guzekowski, aye.
Ladani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Anna, I.
Kipchinsky, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye. It's been a long day. Night, everybody.